So the operational landscape of a chart. So this is a TradingView chart and I'm on a 60-minute time frame with ES. I want to be trading the RollerCoaster. We have the xBrat RollerCoaster, which is a great trading strategy, but it's only good when we know the operational landscape, when we know where those support and resistance zones are. So we're going to go through some examples from sort of January, February, March this year in 2024. To learn how to start to put these time frame specific support and resistance zones. I'm not going to go to multiple support resistance zones. I'm not going to make it overcomplicated. Not going to go through too much logic. If you've got NinjaTrader, our automated support and resistance zones with the Guardian zones actually does everything for you and puts all of those multiple time support and resistance zones on the chart. But for those that don't have NinjaTrader, and a lot of our customers have TradingView, I want to go through some basics for you. Okay, so one of the things that we talk about, and I talk about a lot in my book, are confluences. So, and this narrows all the way back down to how do we put that operational landscape together? How do we put the zones on? Some people put really big fat zones on there that actually make no sense whatsoever. So I want to give you some basic rules today to be able to do that and identify it. So I'm going to start off on the left here towards the end of January 2024, and we can see we have a cluster of tests around about this sort of price down here. Okay, and then we have a second test. At this point, I consider this a coincidence. Okay, I need a third test to give me a confluence of pivots to form the high and the low of the zone. The zone can't be too wide. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So the third test is this candle just here forms the lower bound of the zone. So let's measure that zone. Let's use this tool here, just in the amount of ticks. So we've got 47 ticks. Going to write that down. 47 ticks. Okay. During this phase, now we've come to get to that third zone here. These highs here are important because this zone here needs to be less than 15% of that whole range here. That's my rule, okay? So I'm going to measure this range from these pivots all the way up to the top, and that's 335 ticks, okay? So you've got a computer on your calculator, on a computer even. So we're going to go, 47 divided by 335 equals 14. Okay, that's 14%. Times that by 100, you'll see that whole percentage there, 14%. So that is just about on the limit, which actually helps us gauge for the rest of it. We don't have to do any more calculation for a while. So this now becomes a zone. So on the chart here, I've coloured this in lightly. It's almost see-through because this isn't a zone until we've got that third confluence with those pivots. Now you see moving forward, it's darker pink, and that becomes relevant for future tests. At the top at the same time, we had a pivot here, a pivot here, and then a third test with this pivot here. So at this point, this particular zone didn't really exist until we got the confluence of the third zone. So then we start to get to print there. I don't need to measure again. Why? Because it's actually thinner than this particular zone down here, and we know that was just at just before the max limit there. So we're moving forward. So now, once we get this third pivot formed, just before then, we have a short signal here, okay? We haven't got that zone formed yet, remember, down the bottom, until it's the end of that particular move, okay? So this trade is a good trade because at this moment in time, these two zones have not been formed yet. This comes down, gets the pivot, and we start to come back up again. Now, due to this recent price action, there's lots of fresh air to the left, there's no more price action. This is where we're going with these pivots, the confluence of pivots to form the zones. Now we've got some concrete zones. So we come back down to test this zone, and we get a long signal at this point here. The risk reward to this next resistance zone is not good enough. We don't take the trade. That's the rule. We get some more price action, comes up, and now we get a pivot. But from that pivot, we get a really good roller coaster trade, okay? There's the entry, there's the stop. Lots of fresh air to that support zone that we identified as being the confluence of those first three pivots all the way back on 31st of January 2024. This zone actually found support here again on the 13th of February 2024. We've done our homework, we've made it work. We've got fresh air, we've had a great trade. The trailing stop was taken out at this point here, but to me a good target for these types of trades is when it hits that previous support zone there. And that trade was around about 375 ticks on ES. That's a massive trade, that's sure. Worth waiting for, especially at $12.50 per tick. That's a really, really strong trade. And all we did was start to build the operational landscape back here to give us the fresh air for those trades. It comes to test this support zone again. It doesn't break through. So for me, that support zone is still valid and still strong. We then pull back up here to test this same sort of area again. So this was the upper bound, this was the lower bound, but this is only the second. It's only a coincidence right now. But we get another roller coaster signal to go short. Lots of fresh air to that bottom end. It's a great trade. Trailing stop's taken out at this point here. It didn't quite reach that support zone. That's fine. But then we get a long trade at this point here. Remember, this zone doesn't exist until it's tested a third time. So we've got fresh air to trade into. Long trade goes in, massive move, and this move again is around about 300 ticks, okay, till the trailing stop's taken out. We get a long signal here. It doesn't move through the entry, so it doesn't trade. We get another long signal here. It doesn't move through the entry. It's not a trade. Then we get our third confluence of pivots to form here. Again, look at the size of this one compared to that first one there. Slightly, about the same, so we're good to go. This is now a relevant support and resistance zone. We're moving on in time. This next short trade we don't take in. Why? We don't short into support. It holds. It holds. It pushes back up. We then get a short trade on the roller coaster. Lots of fresh air, risk to reward. And how do you measure that risk to reward? Use the fib extension here. Stop, entry, and it's 1 to 2. Okay, anything 1 to 1.6 or above is fine. Great looking trade, moves all the way down, and guess what? It tests that zone again. Being patient and waiting. 1 pivot, 2 pivot, 3 pivot. Now there's a confluence. Now we can actually put our zone in and trading between those zones. So now we've had ES make new highs. We've got a short signal on a Friday after NFP. Just be waiting for Monday to come and maybe look for a short at 518300 all the way down to this fresh air. We've got to think about some pivots that may be forming right now. And again, let's just draw those in with ES. Oops. Okay, so we've got a pivot here. We've got a low, a high. Is it tested again? Not at the moment, okay? So at this moment in time, if I just put that pivot down there, we've got 3 tests. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now for me it comes relevant. Let's just measure this. So we've got a high and a low of this current range. Let's make sure We're not too fat on here. 383 ticks. And our potential is at 57 ticks. I can tell straight away that's pretty close, but it should be okay. Let's whack it on the calculator. 57 divided by 383 equals 14.8%. So this zone is actually now relevant. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make it easier. I'm just going to clone that. I'm going to bring it up to there, because now on Monday this zone is now relevant. Okay, so we haven't got a great deal of risk to reward on the short down to this zone. So that is the reason not to take the short trade on Monday. There could in fact be a test of this and a move up. The whole idea of this video was to show you the power of the roller coaster. But any signal, any strategy is only as powerful as much as the trader can actually get to grips with building the operational landscape as price action happens with those support and resistance zones. Remember, 2 pivots is a coincidence, 3 is a confluence. Maximum 15% of the range should be the width of the zone. If it's more than that, it's pretty wide and can be quite spongy, and it can leak and things like that. So be very, and that's my rule, okay? You will find on your instrument that you trade, you will find over time, as you start to understand the behavior of that particular instrument, what those percentages are. So hopefully that helps. I'm just going to put the link down below to the roller coaster indicator. It's available for lots and lots of platforms. And if you follow these simple rules to build up the operational landscape where those support and resistance zones are from this video, you will be successful with the roller coaster trading indicator.